Indian Government Act of 1858. So this is the first act which was implemented by the British government after the first war of Indian independence. Students, after the first war of Indian independence, which are the acts implemented? So that one, to understand the Indian problems or else to fulfill the problems of India, so through this act the British government tried. So here the Indian Government Act of 1858. So through this we can see major changes which took place in India, and through this the British government ensured the all-round development of India by implementing the Indian Government Act of 1858. So come, let us see what are the new implementation they made through this act. The very first one is the British East India Company, which got license from the British government, so it was cancelled. That means British East India Company came to an end through this act. And then who started administration over India? That means the British government, which was under the control of England Queen, or direct administration started over India. So that is the major development. So through this act, English East India Company came to an end and the British government started direct administration on India. And the second one is the post of Governor General was changed into Viceroy. It was changed into Viceroy. Remember students, the first Viceroy of India was Lord Canning. Lord Canning became the first Viceroy of India. Then a new post was created, so that is Secretary of State. Secretary of State. So what is this post and who was this person? Means he was a part of British government. He was a part of British Parliament. So being in England, he was responsible to the Indian administration. And to support him or to help him in the administration, a Council of India was appointed. A Council of India was formed. These members were assisting to the Secretary of State in his administration. So thus, after the first war of Indian independence, the new act was implemented, so that is the Indian Government Act of 1858. So after this, in the year of 1861, one more act was implemented, so that is Indian Council Act. So this is very important. So regarding Indian administration, why? Because for the first time, the Indians were appointed in the Executive Council of Viceroy as a non-official members. Remember, here the Indians were not elected, but those members were selected. That means they were nominated by the Viceroy. Few members he nominated as non-official member. So here what for the introduced means, so to understand the aspiration of Indians, they appointed the Indians in his executive council. So this policy is called as policy of assertion. As the British gave chance to the Indians to take part in the executive council of Viceroy as non-official, this system is called as policy of assertion. Policy of assertion. And second one is ordinance in emergency. That means the Viceroy of India got a supreme power, that is called as ordinance. Ordinance means now you can note that the President of India, he has the power to declare emergency power. Okay, so during the time of emergency, he can make some ordinance. That power he had. So such kind of power was implemented during the time of Indian Council Act of 1861. So next we will go to Indian Council Act of 1892. The main features of this act are the number of members were increased both in the regional and the central legislative assembly. So before this, very less members were there. So in that number was increased so through the Act of 1892. And then here legislative council had the authority to discuss over the budget, central budget. Now when the budget will be introduced in the central government or state government, legislative members, both opponent and ruling party members are there, so they will make that discussion. So through that only the power of the legislative bodies, so it will be shown. Okay, so such kind of power was given to the legislative council to discuss over the budget. And also here one provision was given to the legislative assembly member to question the government, on the basis of public issues. Many public problems will be there. So regarding that, they started to raise the questions in the legislative assembly. So that provision was given through the Indian Council Act of 1892. So after discussing the 1892 Act, next let us go to the very important act, that is 1909 Indian Council Act. It is also called as Minto-Morley reforms. Why it is called so means, by the time Minto was Viceroy and Morley was the Secretary of State. So these two members have made this reforms or this act. Hence it is also called Minto-Morley reforms. So what are the features are there in these reforms? Let us see. Very first one is the number of legislative council members was increased from 16 to 60. So already through the Indian Council Act of 1892, the number was increased to 16, but this number still increased so to 60. From 16 to 60, the number of members increased. And then this number not only in the legislative assembly, it also increased in the regional council assembly. Their number, the member of regional council also increased. And then here election concept was emerged. So during the Indian Council Act of 1909, the regional council members are they started to elect through the election. So for the first time this concept was introduced. And then here separate representation for Muslims was implemented, separate communal electorate. So that concept was emerged. The main intention of this policy is to break the unity between Hindus and Muslims. So by the time Muslim League members were there and Indian National Congress members were there, to break the unity between these two organizations, they provided separate representation for Muslims. So these are the main features of Indian Council Act of 1909. It is also called as Minto-Morley reforms. Government of India Act of 1919, which is also called as Montego-Chelmsford Act or Montego-Chelmsford reforms, because Montego was the Secretary of State and Chelmsford was the Viceroy of India. So these two members referred these reforms, so hence it is called as the Montego-Chelmsford reforms. So let us see what are the reforms or what are the features they implemented through the Government of Indian Act of 1919. So here the British government implemented the bicameral legislative body in India or bicameral legislative system in India. So what is this bicameral? Now you can see in the Indian Parliament we have two houses, lower house and upper house, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha. So such kind of two houses were established for the first time in India. So that is called as bicameral legislative body. So this helped a lot to form the present Parliament of India. And then diarchy system was implemented at the local self-government. What is this diarchy system? You might have remembered dual government, which was established by Robert Clive in Bengal. He introduced, right? So such kind of diarchy was introduced through the 1919 Act. So what is this diarchy means? In each and every state governors were there. Okay, he had councils. That councils had divided into two parts, and then the responsibilities of the state government is related to administration and judiciary. So everything is shared. Okay, so that is called as diarchy system. It was implemented at the local self-government. And then an High Commissioner was appointed. Already to look after Indian administration we have two English officers. One is Secretary of State and another one is Viceroy of India. Along with that, one more higher officer was appointed, is nothing but High Commissioner. And then local self-governments. So here the Government of Indian Act of 1919 promised to the Indians to expand the local self-government. So only in a few regions these local self-governments were formed. No? So that one we are going to expand throughout the country. So like that they promised. And then budget. Right now we have state budget and central budget. So before 1919, only one kind of budget was there, so that is central budget. Even the provincial budgets were controlling by the central government itself. But after the 1919 Act, according to this, central budget was separated by the local self-government budget. Okay, na? So that's what it gave complete freedom to the local self-governments to administrate. And then in the 1909 Act, separate communal electorate. So this word you might have heard. Okay, so there separate constituency they were provided only for the Muslims, but it was expanded in the 1919 Act to the Sikhs and Anglo-Indians, even to other Europeans also separate constituencies were formed. So these are the main features of Government of Indian Act of 1919. Then the last act, that is called as Government of India Act of 1935. So which is considered as the major act. Why? Because it has given complete authority to the local self-governments. Okay, na? So that means let us discuss what are the features or provisions are provided through the Government of India Act of 1935. The very first one is federal system was implemented. What is this federal system? So federal system means all the states are united under a central government. Right now we have the same thing. Though a state is having its own government, own police department, own administration system, own judicial system, then also it cannot be independent. It is still under the control of, or still it is united under a central government. So such kind of system was introduced through the 1935 Act, that is called as federal system. And then Reserve Bank of India was established. Why? Because to control the financial condition of the British government, they established the Reserve Bank of India. And then diarchy system, which was established at the local self-governments, that were implemented in the central government also. In the central government also, the entire responsibilities were divided into two groups. Okay, so thus they implemented the diarchy system at central government, but this system was completely cancelled at the regional level. At the local self-governments, diarchy system was completely banned. And finally, they established the federal courts. Okay, federal court they established. So here federal court means to lesser the burden of Supreme Court, at the regional level federal court was established. So thus 1935 Act gave many provisions. Okay, so students, many acts we have studied in this class. Okay, all these acts or provisions are there. No? Further, it has helped a lot to develop the Indian Constitution. Okay, so students, in this lesson we have discussed about what are the administration policies introduced by the British, and through that what are the changes or development took place and how it impacted over the Indian society. So about that we discussed it, or we learnt in this lesson. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಆಗಿದ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಬೆಲ್ ಐಕನನ್ನು ಕ್ಲಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡೋ ವಿಡಿಯೋಗಳ ನೋಟಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಮೊದಲು ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ಸಂದೇಹಗಳಿದ್ರೆ ಕಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ಈ ತರಗತಿಗಳು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ತಲುಪುವಂತೆ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ.